Meanwhile, the Trump administration is moving ahead with the support of Venezuelan National Assembly President Juan Guaido. Now, according to the White House, President Donald Trump spoke with Guaido to congratulate him on his historic assumption of the presidency and to reinforce his support for Venezuela's democracy. Now, this week on Fox Business, National Security Advisor John Bolton made it clear potential oil investment is playing a role.
It'll make a big difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of the United States.
For more, return to former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, I have to tell you, I'm listening to, once again, a U.S. official say oil. Kind of brings back some deja vu from a few years ago looking at the Middle East and the events that went into Iraq. Is National Security Advisor John Bolton advocating for American companies to take control of another country's oil?
It certainly sounds like it. And again, it's hard to not be reminded of that, especially given that where was John Bolton at the time, back in 2003, when we invaded Iraq? So it certainly does sound like that. I mean, you can talk about whether this would be good for us economically, but that's, I think, called stealing to start with. And secondly, we're now the biggest energy producer in the world. Why do we need to grab some other countries' energy resources?
He's doing this all under the cover of this is a humanitarian effort. And yes, there are definitely issues in Venezuela. There are issues in lots of countries around the world. So why is so many on the left and the right? I heard Madeleine Albright this morning even saying, you know, definitely we need to get involved. Maybe not militarily, but we definitely need to be putting pressure. Why cannot we just say, you know what, we'll make sure there's a fair election, but other than that, you handle your own?
Well, sure. And as far as Madeleine Albright and people on the left, look, there's long been an alliance between neocons and the Republican Party and liberal interventionists in the Democratic Party that they have in common warmongering, sanctions, death, destruction, whether we're talking about the Balkans in the 1990s, which everybody forgets about, how the neocons supported Bill Clinton's war of aggression. And, of course, those people on the left all signed on to George Bush's invasion of Iraq. They were all for it. The Democrats, Hillary Clinton voted for it. So John Kerry voted for it. So let's not be surprised by this. I think the sad thing here is that it's so totally unnecessary. Sure, maybe Maduro feels he's in a weak position. He says he's willing to negotiate with the opposition. But we're not in a position to push any kind of national reconciliation because we planted our feet in concrete over regime change now.
Well, and that's the question for you. You're seeing other Latin American countries, I think almost 15. You're also seeing France and England, Canada, others getting involved. Do you think if the U.S. had not gotten involved and taken such a hard line for the opposition that these other countries would have also stayed out of it?
Of course they would have stayed out of it. Look, let's not sugarcoat it here. Most of these other countries are not allies. They're satellites. We own their intelligence services. We own their presidencies. We own their militaries. They do what they're told. They're like members of the Warsaw Pact were with respect to the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
Well, that's the thing. I have to shake my head because right now the one thing that's plaguing the Trump administration is this black cloud of election interference, behind-the-scenes covert, all these investigations, FBI raids at 6 in the morning because of election meddling, and no proof has come of that. And yet here we are making this nightly headlines of election meddling in another country. The question is there a chance to actually guarantee fair elections in Venezuela at this point? Could it happen?
It could, but I mean, here's the thing. Do we expect other countries to tell us how we should conduct our elections? If people here feel that, well, Donald Trump got help from the Russians or wherever, are we going to expect other countries to tell us we should hold a do-over of the 2016 election? Guaido, the person we're recognizing, never even ran for president in the first place. It'd be like somebody else saying, well, we recognize Nancy Pelosi. How about her and Trump have a new election now? What new election? It's none of our business.
Well, that's what a lot of Democrats would love to see, you know, that are claiming for impeachment.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see the Trump administration not apply the same cookie cutter that is happening here that he's avoiding down, and he's the one encouraging another country.
Trump is the target of a regime change operation here, and he's doing the same thing to another country.
Karma. But Bolton is very open about a plan for Venezuela to cut the government's access to the oil resources and how lack of pay could flip the military against Maduro. Here's what he told Fox Business.
Today here in Washington, we've been looking at ways to disconnect Maduro from the financial resources he needs to pay the military and otherwise keep himself in power. That could be a very effective way, we think, of helping the legitimate government.
What kind of diplomacy is that going on a cable news network? to spread a message.
It's not diplomacy. It's regime change 101. Plan A is to get the military to remove Maduro. If that doesn't work, Plan B would be Ukraine 2014. Get people on the street, get people killed, and be able to accuse the government of saying you're killing your own people, peaceful protesters. And Plan C would be to send in a guerrilla force from Colombia or somewhere else, and we're back to Central America in the 1980s.
Hence why Maduro said he does not want to see another Vietnam happen in his own streets. Thanks for joining us, Jim.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.